Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which is on cohabitation. Now this is an area of law which has been with us for a long time, and it's an important area because cohabitation is continuing to be effectively on the increase. I know a lot of people are getting married, but it's a relatively new phenomenon in that in the past, of course, most people did get married, but you've got a whole range of things that have come into the equation in recent years, including things like same-sex partnerships, marriage and so forth. So cohabitation, the living together of people, is an important area, and this book is now in its 6th edition, and it's the Law, Practice and Precedents which go with it, and it's got a CD, this book, which is very helpful for the forms. It's been written by a number of people, and I'll list the names. Helen Wood, John Eames, Mark Harrop, Ashley Murray, Angharad Palin and David Salter. The book's also available as an e-book. It's from Family Law, which is the imprint of Jordan Publishing Limited. Again, a first-class book in what is a specialist area, effectively, for Jordans. I found the Jordans publications extremely helpful in court, as I know many of my colleagues and the judiciary do. So thank you to Jordans and also the authors for the huge amount of effort that's put into these books. This is where the law's found, after all. This is how we deal with the problems that we're faced with as advisors to clients when they come to see us. Now, we've given the review a title, our book review. Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and an interesting discussion actually on what the contents are. We've given it this title, The Only Single Volume Work which combines commentary and documentation on cohabitation. And as I said, it's got an accompanying CD with it. Let's have a look at the book first. It's a hardback. It's quite a heavy book actually. Well, there's the front, and there's the side, and then there's the back of it. And there's a lot of detail. You can see all the information at the back. I'm going to open the book up in a minute. I'll open it up at the back. There is the CD at the back. You just use that in a normal way, putting it in the computer, and it'll tell you how to set up and run. There's the index, and you've got the paragraph numbering to find what you're looking for. And then, of course, at the back you've got a whole range of different points covering the various areas that the book goes into. I just want to show you open the book in the middle of it to give you some idea of what you've got. You've got the paragraph numbering at the sides, which is linked into the index. You've also got the notes, the footnotes, which are quite important. This is again looking at some areas concerning form filling, and there are also things like checklists, which are quite helpful. Depends very much on what the issue of law is that you're dealing with, or practice. And as you can see, you've got people who are very senior, I would suggest, within the profession in terms of their knowledge and experience, both as judges and counsel and solicitors, but also people who've got first-hand knowledge of the problems that are surrounding cohabitation. There's an acknowledgement there. I mean, most practicing lawyers will remember the issues from their academic studies. There's the preface for the first edition, for the 5th edition. And then there's a main preface there. This, of course, is the 6th edition that we've got here. It's interesting to see that we've only got actually up to Eleanor King's commentary on the 5th edition. However, the important thing to bear in mind about this book, as I say, is it is actually a family law publication from Jordans. Let's have a look at the contents. There we go. It's set out. There's a little short index there to show you what you've got. You've got a detailed set of chapter headings. You can see there's a lot of detail. If you look carefully, you'll see there's a lot of detail there. So you should be able to find what you're looking for. These are cohabitation agreements. Now, they're relatively new to some people as well. There's taxation issues, personal protection, all sorts of other areas. I did find the checklist very helpful when we were going through this. This deals with children. This is again one of the important areas. Death and succession, again, chapter 6. And not a large number of chapters. You can see the forms it's all sort of linked in logically. Then there are pensions, prenuptials and cohabitation and welfare benefits right at the end. And you can see that we go right to the end there. Then the final bit is miscellaneous, which is all the bits which they haven't really found a home for. Then you've got the table of cases, then the table of statutes itself, some international materials as well as statutory instruments are also listed. Then you do have an abbreviation section, which I think is also very helpful. It's amazing how one can forget some of these abbreviations. And then you go into the introduction itself. Do read the introduction. It's always worth having a look at what they talk about, because they start off, as many do, talking about figures, about the number of people who are actually cohabiting. And then you've got, as I said, you've got a lot of precedents. It is called Law, Practice and Precedents. And the precedents are quite important because, again, they do link in with the CD at the back. The total number of pages, 770 odd, just under 800 pages then in total. It's a heavy book, but an interesting one. Now, this is what we say about it. Practitioners tasked with advising unmarried couples or those in a civil partnership or on any or all aspects of their lives, including relationships and finances, should acquire this book in our view. It's now in a 6th edition from Jordan's, and it is to date the only work specifically on cohabitation which combines informed and authoritative commentary with checklists, and the checklists are very helpful. They also have procedural guides and precedents, all actually in one single volume, which again is helpful. It's a heavy-ish book, but at least it's all in one place. It's co-authored by 6 expert contributors, each a leading authority in this often complex and what is actually a very sensitive area of law, because it's basically people living together. One contributor, District Judge Helen Wood, points out that lawyers are usually consulted only when a cohabiting relationship is in difficulties, either at its end or ending, and at that stage myths or notions of entitlement to property or finances need to be exploded. Her view and the basic approach of the book is that prevention is better than cure, and obviously that's a piece of advice in a very wide range of legal matters. The book's objective, therefore, is to provide practitioners with clear, authoritative guidance on the law, practice and procedure in this area, which will enable them to advise clients who find themselves in difficulty. Such advice, it has been said, spans all aspects of legal practice. Quote, "The outcome of litigation can never be certain," says Mrs. Justice King. That's Eleanor King, who's a High Court judge in the Family Division. And she writes forward, which was to the previous edition, which is still very current. "Many expensive arguments," she adds, "could be avoided if cohabitants were to take the appropriate advice at the outset on, for example, the purchase of a shared home, or by the formalisation of agreed terms in a properly drafted cohabitation agreement." Now, as I've said before, this is a relatively new, in some respects, area to go into. And of course, when people are cohabiting, they don't necessarily think about agreements, but we are getting much more round to that way of thinking because of the nature of, for instance, the same-sex marriage concept and things like prenuptials and so forth. So it is, I think, very important for us to consider that. And of course we read about it in the press on a regular basis with these very famous people who have problems from time to time. Interestingly, property and the matter of ownership of the home occupies the first section of the book, with the warning that living together does not in itself found an interest in the shared home, and that's an important point as a principle, I think, as many cohabitants obviously have discovered this to their cost. The book then goes on to cover in detail and in depth some issues such as the cohabitation agreements, which I've mentioned, taxation, personal protection, that's from harassment and violence, so there's that overlap, children and the death and succession issues, most of which will be the sort of problems that you'll get if you see the client in conference. Pension and welfare benefits are also examined, as well as miscellaneous matters such as change of name and separation agreements. Also conveniently contained in the volume are extensive tables of cases which I've shown you, statutes, statutory instruments The international materials and abbreviations as well are also very helpful. The book, we think, excels in two outstanding qualities. One is comprehensiveness, the other clarity. It's a boon to practitioners under pressure. It's easy to navigate thanks to a detailed table of contents right at the front and the extensive index at the back. Remember, it's linked to the paragraph numbering. Also worthy of note is Professor Rebecca Probert's introduction with its historical summary, which puts the whole subject of cohabitation into some sort of perspective. As Probert remarks, for instance, the need for a work that deals with the legal position of unmarried couples is greater today than ever before, and there's a reason for that. With their number now approaching the 3 million mark, this latest up-to-date edition of what is a definitive work, plus the CD, is an essential purchase for all professional advisors in the field. That's mediators, accountants and financial advisors, as well of course as legal practitioners. And the law stated as at the 1st of February 2015. Have a quick look at it again. As I said, it's an important book, this one. There's the front, there's the side and there's the back. Just opening it in the middle. Here we go, this is on children, chapter 5, right in the middle. The law, again, anybody who needs to just brush up on just a few things, and we all do, just on where if there have been any changes, it's useful to just have a quick look. For instance, the introduction covers a number of new pieces of legislation are coming in, and you've got the most up-to-date statement on things like determination and declaration of parentage, testing, and all the other things. So you can see again the paragraph numbering and the footnotes. I stress that a bit so you've got some idea quite quickly of how to use the book. And of course the preface here, which is the current one, is from District Judge Wood, and it sets out exactly what they've been trying to do. Anyway, I'd like to thank all the people concerned. They're experts in their fields. We can't do without these books. We need them as practitioners. I think the courts find it helpful to have them. It depends very much on what the issues are. Many of them are relatively, I say relatively straightforward, but for the individuals concerned, it's one of the biggest things that happens to them. So thank you to all concerned very much indeed. It's a great piece of help for us having books like this, and I know how much work goes into it, so thank you. Bye-bye.